Sorry, I was trying to go live on here, but I went live on the Dating Detectives Instagram. I wanted to talk to you guys more about the last two episodes that we did. I was going to do a makeup tutorial, and so I figured while I do my makeup tutorial, I wanted to kind of open the floor up to you guys to, I don't know, maybe ask any questions that you have about the OnlyFans Pimp episode or the last two episodes. There's a lot of controversy right now. Well, not controversy, I guess what the girls didn't realize, what our guests on the podcast didn't realize. They didn't realize that this was a form of sex trafficking, right? They didn't realize that this was something that was much more serious than it is. And I don't want it to get in trouble. That's just the title of the episode. How dare he? So these women came to us because I know, I'm sorry, Holly, they were such long episodes, and we wanted to give them, we wanted to honor their stories by letting them tell literally every ounce of it without leaving anything out. So that's why they were so long, and that's why they were so long, because we wanted to make sure they had, so I think that in short terms, yes, more people have come forward to talk about. Pam, you can get the episodes anywhere you get your podcasts. Spotify, just type in the Dating Detectives. Hey, Tiffany. I feel like a lot of women have reached out to us and said, hey, I think I could be talking to this guy. And after vetting them, and tracking this guy's inline movement. Okay, so what's happening is a lot of women have reached out and said, hey, I think I could be talking to this guy, right? Which we're like, first of all, holy shit. If there's more people that could still be talking about this, or still, they think that they're still, that they're with this guy, and then we vet them and we do our investigation. I kind of dig into it a little bit and find out that it's not the same guy. And so then what happens is now we see that there are more people that are experiencing this from someone else, which means that there's more than just one Jay out there. So this guy Jay, who's ultimately involved in sex trafficking, right? And so what happens is these women they're younger, right? And so they might not know immediately what's happening. But if he says hey, you have to do OnlyFans, and they are, by this time, this is someone that they love very much, and they're in a relationship with this person, and he says, hey, you need to do this, and you're gonna get paid for it, right? OnlyFans is gonna pay you whatever your percentage is, and then you're gonna give me half of it, right? So I feel that's he says, I'm going to be your manager. I'm your partner, right? That's not a manager. That's a pimp. You're doing sexual things, I guess is it sexual? I guess that's the problem is is it considered, I mean, if there's nudity involved, right? And you're doing these things, there's something more, obviously it's sexual in nature, right? And so is that considered sex trafficking? And it's it is basically. So there's a lot of questions around what are we calling this? But ultimately it is a form of sex trafficking. We've had some professionals come forward and share. Obvious just it was going underground. So actually we are, this is linen. This is the color linen. An excellent groomer. Thank you. Yeah. So he was grooming these girls. So and remember, if you listen to the episode, he lied about his age, right? And he said that he was much younger than he really was, than what Livy found out that he was at first. And she found out after she was already with him for a while, right? And so he lied about his age, so he made himself appear much younger, but really he was an older man. So older means more experience, right? He was an older man, and he basically used these girls to get money, and he's of course he's still doing it. Like there's a lot coming down the pike with him. You'll hear a lot more. These we're making sure that these girls get exactly what they need. Victims of crime. Yeah, I really think it is criminal. It absolutely is criminal. And when there's any type of like deception involved, it's even a crime when you borrow money from someone and you say, I need to borrow money because I need to make my car payment, right? But then they give you that money and then you buy like a refrigerator. That's a crime. Like you're misleading them. Like that's a crime. You can't do that, right? And so this is kind of like, this is misleading in a whole different way. So this is manipulation. This is coercion. This is basically, this guy taking advantage of the fact that, these girls are very young and might not know much about like what's going on or whatever. Use the girls for money who use men for money. But they weren't underage. They were not underage. But I feel like, so I understand what you're saying. He used the girls for money who used men for money. But the reason that that's not accurate and the reason that that can't be a thing is because these girls, if they chose on their own to do OnlyFans and they said, this is what I want to do, right? And they said, I'm going to OnlyFans and I want to put myself out there. And the men that sign up say, well, I want to get on OnlyFans for girls who want to put themselves out there. Then it's like a meeting of the minds, right? You're here to show whatever. He's here to pay for you to show whatever. And that's an agreement, right? So in essence, they're not using men to get money. If people want to see what they have to offer, that's what the program is. That's what the OnlyFans is for. It's a legal way of, promoting whatever. Okay. I'm trying to be careful with my words, but basically, so if he's saying, sounds like the American dream. Okay. Well, so it's a mutual agreement, right? If he is saying, hey, you need to do this, and she's saying, I don't want to do this, and he's saying, no, you have to do this, and you are going to do this, and you are going to give me half of your money. Do you know what I mean? Like, he posted them on Reddit, which is way beyond what they signed up for. So I don't know. Like, I just feel like it's kind of, yeah, you're absolutely right. Anyone can be groomed, and groomed is the appropriate word, by a narcissist. And this type is even more insidious because he has made them accomplices. And it's really, really sad. And it just goes to show you, especially with all the girls reaching out now, like they're contacting the podcast and they're saying, so I think I might be dating this guy. And then after we investigate and find out this isn't even the same guy, it's someone very similar. So you mean to tell me there are multiple instances of this happening? So now there are multiple dudes out here doing this same thing. Like, that's scary. Yeah, exactly. So if you saw the recent reel that I just posted, or that Molly, the Dating Detectives producer, she posted it on the Dating Detectives page, and she was basically saying exactly that. She's like, managers don't take 50%. Like, my talent manager takes like what, 10-20%, something like that, 10% I think, 10% of what you make, like that. But that's something that we agreed to in the beginning. And she said, do you want to do this? I said, yes, I want to do this. And she said, okay, we're going to do this. And I said, okay. And I said, I'm going to do this. And we said, okay. And so like we agreed, this was a mutual agreement that we had. I was going to do this. She was going to take this much money and whatever. He's crazy. And so anyways, we're bound, legally we are bound, and cannot say much more about like what could possibly happen in the future with this guy. But you will be, as soon as we are able to say more about it, we absolutely will. And y'all know me, I can't keep my nose out of anything, so. They do if they manage more than 50% of your life. What do you mean? I don't think he had any friends. Like, I think I think he was so focused on like trafficking these girls and taking advantage of them and stealing their money just to turn around and do it to other girls. It's awful. Like, it's such an awful situation. And where does, I'll share with you as a private investigator, and it's something I don't really talk much about on like my PI stories I can legally tell you, because those are meant to be kind of a little bit more like, this is, I think, just a little too serious. But I've actually worked a couple of trafficking cases and drug trafficking, sex trafficking, some with children, and they find it, especially when it comes to women who are of age. I think that's Jay commenting. Who else would defend him? I know we want to do some kind of like fundraiser for them. What we're actually working on is we want to create, we're thinking of either creating our own nonprofit or finding a nonprofit that would contribute towards women like this, like women that have been groomed and manipulated by whoever, or people in general. I guess I can't just say women, victims who are manipulated by others, and creating like a fund for them to help them if they need help with like funds for like legal assistance or getting restraining orders or whatever it is that they need to be safe. Those are things that we're working on, and I just think that it's so important that people know that they're not alone. And just the fact that other people are reaching out to the podcast and saying, hey, I think I'm talking to this guy, and it turns out to not even be him. So it's like, I wonder if he's friends with that guy, and it's just awful. I think that the important thing is that, like, a lot of times, right, when we get in, when these women are in this situation, or I keep saying women, it's mostly women, but it's victims in general, so that could include men too. So I'm sorry for that. But if there are victims in this situation, a lot of times, if they're going on OnlyFans, right, to try and fund their life or whatever, right? And that's their prerogative. Like, I ain't your mama, do whatever you want, right? But if they're doing that, then more than likely they could probably use help when it comes to finding like legal support, or when it comes to getting a restraining order. Like, stuff like that costs money, you know? And yeah, so the guy that, no, I'm in Florida, but Hannah and Molly are in California. And so what we'd like to do is have some kind of fund set aside so that the guests that come on the Dating Detectives have, like, we can't just like we don't know how it would look, or like, you know, how it would work or whatever, but we want to do something where we can actually contribute to these women and to these people. I was victimized by the Department of Motor Vehicles. Okay, we're done here. Financial abuse. They were his bank. Oh my gosh. Your husband did that too? I'm so sorry. That's so awful. Thanks, Haley. So I think that, so Molly is the one who created the reel. She's the producer. She's the one that you don't hear. I was going to say see from. You don't see or hear from her much, but she's behind the scenes. Molly is the one who actually like vets these stories. She reads all the stories and everything that you guys submit. So when you submitted an email into the show, thank you. I'm only able to research what California has to offer. Yeah, that's what she's working on now. So she actually gets the emails, she reads them, and then she decides what's going to be on the podcast. And based on what she determines, she brings it to me and Hannah. And Hannah and I kind of talk about it together. And a lot of times we hear from the victims or the guests of the podcast like in real time as they're telling their story. So a lot of times we don't even know the story ahead of, like, before we record the episode. And so when we're doing the podcast, like, we want to hear in real time. We want our genuine reactions, our genuine responses to these stories. But Molly typically knows them, and Molly is, as someone who knows every single detail, like, can you imagine? I can imagine that's why she said I'm losing sleep, because it's really hard. Like, that's a lot to take on. Yeah, I think you guys please keep those comments up, especially on the reels that we posted about their story. Keep those comments up because they're seeing them, and I can imagine that they must feel a lot better, like having a platform and knowing that there are people out there that support them. Yeah, she's looking into, we all together collectively are looking into different organizations that we want to, that will contribute towards these victims. How can we make sure he can't keep doing this to other women? There's going to be more information coming down the pike. So don't worry about that. Yeah. So it is a crime, right? It's absolutely criminal what he did. And, you'll hear updates later on. I feel like legally we can't say anything right now, but you will hear a lot more in the future. Oh, Christina, just go to the Dating Detectives podcast. You can, anywhere, it's free anywhere you get your podcast. We have a Patreon. The Patreon's $5 a month and you get like 2 bonus episodes a month. And like Sunday we're doing like a live virtual meet and greet. So we try to do that once a month. Oh, teen girl. That's being the mom of a teen girl. I don't know how you guys do it. As someone who was a teen girl and knowing like the trouble that I got into, like it's crazy. Like I bless you. Bless you. But we are we're trying to, I think at the beginning of the podcast, like when Molly came to me and she's like, hey, like she found me on TikTok and she's like, I want to do a podcast with a private investigator. And I just was curious if that's something you'd be interested in. Like, I want to give you this podcast basically. And I'm like, yeah, sure. Like, you know what I mean? Like that sounds fun, whatever. But we didn't realize the depth of the details of the stories that we would get from people that just need a platform to share. And we're finding out that the more that they're sharing, the more women are coming forward and saying, hey, something similar to this happened to me. And that's why we coined the term dogfish, which is like, basically someone who's a con man, a liar, mostly in the relationship realm, but it doesn't have to be just in like relationships. It's also like, we had a couple of best friends about, dog fishing each other. And it's just wild. Something Was Wrong podcast. That's a good podcast. Yeah, so our manager at Spotify actually works with other podcasts, so we'll be collaborating a lot. We have a couple of those coming down the pike too. Murder with My Husband is another good one. When I got invited to the FX series Murder at the End of the World, I got invited to that premiere in LA. In what was it, October or something, and my husband and I went and we sat next to Murder with My Husband. We sat next to to her and her husband at that premiere, and so I got to meet them, and we want to do a collab with them. Like there's a ton of really cool podcasts that we want to work together with. How often do you do your PI work now? Just every once in a while now. Is there really? Oh my gosh. I heard there's also someone sent us a picture of the menu at, I can't think of the name of the place, but there's a beer called Dogfish, I guess. But we didn't, like, it's kind of, the reason we came up with the word was because, well, obviously we didn't come up with it, but the reason that it came out was because we were talking about, well, it's not a catfish. And I was like, no, it's like a dogfish. And the same thing with femtuition. We were talking about trusting your gut instinct and women have intuition. I'm like, yeah, it's femtuition. And so these words just kind of came out. And so that's how we coined dogfish. Oh, oh my gosh. Oh, so crazy. It's just amazing to me how many stories are out there and how many people are coming forward and like actually telling their story and saying like, hey, this is happening to me too. And a lot of the people that are calling us or reaching out to us and saying, oh my God, this is happening to me. They're saying, I didn't realize I was a victim. Like I didn't realize I was being victimized until I heard you guys' story. And I was like, wait, that's totally happening to me. Wait, what? Just like and some of them are a little bit crazier, like I say not as serious, but where the dogfish mom, where the mom the mom got with the, thanks Froggy. I'll send you a DM and see if we can collab together. The mom of, so our guest, her mom had gotten with her husband. And so she actually like told her full story, like publicly. Legally, we had to keep her anonymous, but like just for the sake of the show. But she told her story publicly, and it was crazy that like, just stories like that where you don't even realize what's going on, and like the signs that you look for, and just being like, oh my gosh, that was a red flag. That's happening to me, but I didn't know it was a red flag until right now. I just heard your podcast and holy crap. And so I feel like it's been such a cool platform to have everybody be able to, you know, kind of like learn more about these red flags and about these dogfish. Yes. We need to share these stories to let our young girls and everyone else know what to be careful of. I know. I can't, Angela, when oh my God, the ending of that podcast, I was like, are you joking? And then I just couldn't believe it. Like, I was like, there's no way this happened. The worst thing a man can do is make a woman feel desperate. Woo, yes. That's how I learned I was a victim. An episode of Oprah telling a similar story. What? Oh my gosh. These horror stories are why I never want to date. You think you know a person. And I'll be honest with you, like, as a private investigator, so I've been with my husband over 7 years now. But when I was dating him, that long ago, 7-8 years ago, I was in the online dating world. And I, like, even as a PI, even as someone who is trust no one, like I literally trust nobody. I don't trust anybody. And that's just my mindset. Like I don't trust literally anybody. And so, I because of the not desperation, but just the pure desire to be loved and to be in a relationship that you know when you're not in a relationship you're like no one wants me, but then when you are in a relationship it's really great and you feel loved and it's just this great like high that you get on or whatever. And so I guess I was kind of desperate for that. And so even I, as someone who doesn't trust anybody, I really let my guard down a lot for someone who literally has zero trust in anybody. So I can just imagine like how it's just so easy to, believe what somebody's saying and you come to trust them and that's it. Like the rest is history, So that kind of sucks. Recap needed. So we're talking about my podcast called The Dating Detectives. It's called the last 2 episodes. It's part 1 and part 2 of the OnlyFans Pimp, where a man basically groomed 2 women into being OnlyFans, what do you call it, performers? What do you call them? OnlyFans, whatever. And so he said, I will be your manager and I'll take 50% of what you earn, as opposed to like being a manager. He's basically like, that's called a pimp. Almost kidnapped at 6. Never trusted men. The immediate safety I felt with my husband. I knew he was my person, even though I was 17. Wow. Oh my gosh. I'm so sorry that happened to you, Angela. That's crazy. I was, when I was in 4th grade. I was 8 years old and I was walking to school, and a man pulled over on the side of the road. He said, "Hey, little girl, have you seen my dog?" Pulled out a gun, points it at me. A woman, I happened to be like crossing over this like side road of this neighborhood. A woman had come out of her house and she saw the whole thing happen. Well, I glanced over, saw her, and I just start running. Like, I'm like, the first rule of not getting murdered is don't go to the second location. So no, not getting in your car. Anyways, I ran to the school crossing guard. It was like 2 blocks away. Freaking ran, right? And I see her and I'm like, this guy just pointed a gun at me, told me to get in the car. And he said, "Have you seen my dog?" And I was like, no, like that's like, and I was like, so maybe help me. And she's like, okay, go on to class. So she sends me to class after I tell her what happened. Meanwhile, the woman who had come out of her house goes to the front office of the school, tells them what happened. So they don't even call my mom, like nothing. Like they didn't take my name. Nobody did anything, right? So then they said, "Will all the 4th grade girls who walk to school on Dorman Road, like, will you come to the office?" So you have like these 20 girls or however many of us were, and they, like the crossing guard pointed me out, and she was like, her. And then she made me tell her story, and then they told my mom, and my mom was like, you can be a little dramatic too. So what really happened now? And I was like, no, this really happened. And then like, the lady, thank God that lady came out, because nobody believed me. They were like, yeah, okay, just go on to class. And so I described the guy, I described the dog, I described the car, I described everything. Like I was like whatever. And so from that point forward, like I don't trust anybody. Like absolutely not. Like absolutely do not go to the second location. Like I am not getting murdered today. And I was like 8. Like what did I know about true crime? Nothing. But there's just that instinct that you have, right? But if this was someone that had like groomed me and kind of like made me trust him, and you start to get that emotional kind of connection or whatever, that's when you start to trust people. Then if he was like, hey, have you seen my dog? I would have been like, no, but I'll help you find him, like whatever. And that's what happens, is that like there's that immediate gut instinct, right? But that's where the grooming comes in. So that's where when someone grooms you, they are basically saying all the right things and doing all the right things to get you to trust them, so that when they're gonna ask the question that they're gonna ask, like, hey, I want you to go do OnlyFans and I'm gonna take 50% of the cut, like I'm gonna take your money, and then basically use all of their money to buy, like, to manipulate other women and leave them broke. Like, well, he's taking all their money and he's like, oh, I'll pay you back. And then he never does. Or he'll take the money and say like, oh, well, you owed me for this anyways. And they're like, oh, okay. And then now they feel stupid because they're like, what did I miss? And so they think that they've done something wrong. They think they're like, oh, well, I didn't really say I owed him for something, but I guess I do. Like he said it, right? So yeah, he picked girls that have never been in serious relationships, and so they don't realize like what's supposed to be real. I was groomed by my friend's father. Oh my God, I'm so sorry. Oh, I'm sorry, Michelle. No, I can't say that it did. Like it wasn't, because no one really took it seriously. Like I didn't take it seriously. Like I was just like, okay, like that's fine. I will also share with you something super vulnerable, in that when I was 13, I lost my virginity to a man who raped me. And at the time, because there was no violence, there was nothing going on like that. Like I said, no, I did the right things. I was like, nope, don't want to do this. Like, no. But then I was like, okay, we're doing this. And I was like, can you get off me? Like whatever. Anyways, to this day, like until I was 36 or 37 years old, I couldn't call it rape. Like I couldn't say that, where I was like, no, because there was no violence. Like who am I? And so I think that's what happens also, is that people can't officially say like, oh, like this is abuse, because they're like, well, I believed him. Like it was like, I didn't, it wasn't violent. So like, was it abuse? Like he didn't do anything to me, like in a crazy, like, oh, hey babe, my husband's on. So I feel like a lot of people don't realize that they're being abused, or that they're being mistreated, because there's no violence, and they just don't realize. And so I feel like that's what's happened, is that when people groom you, they groom your emotions, they groom your heart, right? And so they just want you to feel like, to feel safe with them or whatever, right? So like this kid where, yes, I'm so sorry that happened to you. That it's mental abuse. It really is. And I feel like you just don't realize it because there's no violence. And so that's where the manipulation comes in. You're being abused, but you don't realize it. And that's really awful. Yep, mental and emotional manipulation. And so whenever, I don't know, when someone comes in and says, hey, you're going to do this, right? And I'm going to take half the money from it. He didn't say that at first. Like he didn't say, hey, go on OnlyFans and perform, or is that what it's called, performing, and do your thing, and then I'll take half your money. Like he groomed them, made them trust him. And then he said, hey, go on OnlyFans, do your thing. And I'm going to, yep. I'm so sorry that happened to you. It takes only 8 minutes for an adult to groom a child. You know what? I've heard something similar to that too. Where it's like with children, the mind and the heart are so easy to manipulate because the lack of experience. And so even with these girls, they were 20, like they were 20, 21, they were grown ass adults. But they still didn't realize, and that's not their fault at all. Like, this guy manipulated them. Oh my God, I'm so sorry. At least he didn't hit me was my mindset. Yep. There was no violence. And like, you hear of like the violent, like for instance, in my case where it's sexual assault, rape, whatever. Those are words that like, you just don't throw around all willy nilly, right? Because it's like, whoa, when I think of that, I think of there's violence. You hear stories where, people are physically, like they're punched, they are beat up, they are, physically, their body is physically altered in a malicious way. Like they are physically violated, right? And in a very violent way. And because there was none of that, like you don't feel like it was abuse. And yep, be polite and go along. Other than your parents, no one should be talking or sharing sex. Yep. But it's really awful. And so anyways, I feel like there's, oh, that's okay. Hey, Dawn. We were just talking about the podcast, my podcast, The Dating Detectives, and the latest 2 episodes. And they're it's a big deal. Like it's kind of hitting people in a way that's like, holy crap, like this stuff really happens. And now it's not like, sometimes it's like, is my boyfriend mean? Like, did my boyfriend just try to like scam me out of money? Or did he legitimately manipulate you, lie to you, and, basically steal all your money, like using emotional abuse? Craziness. Anyways, go listen to the episodes. I said no, told him to get off. It was my duty until 2 years ago. Oh my God, I'm so sorry. That just breaks my heart. Well, and you just feel so violated, right? Like one time my car got broken into and they stole my radio, and I was like devastated because I was like, this is my space. And just to like experience that, or your house getting broken into. And then there's like your body, like your physical body where like, there's just, it's awful. And like, it's a complete mind fuck, right? It's awful. Yeah. Gaslight. Yes. Gaslighting. They tell you that you're crazy, that you're not really feeling what you're feeling. It's awful. Ugh. Oh yeah. So the podcast is called The Dating Detectives. I know it was really good that I really loved how they came together and became friends. And actually, there's a story that I'm going to be telling later on in the podcast. So Hannah just posted a video who's like, has anybody been in a relationship with someone where like someone cheated on you and you like became friends with the other woman, like these two victims did, like they became friends. And that was me. Like when I first became a PI, I started dating this guy. And then I actually found out he was cheating on me, found out who the other girl was. And to this day, like we literally texted today. Like to this day, we still text. It's crazy. He was caught 25 years later. Oh my God. Your ex-husband put hickeys all around your neck. Ah, so insecure. So rude. It's criminal. It's so criminal. Anyways, the podcast is called The Dating Detectives. We really appreciate you guys listening and showing support to the victims, to our guests, and in particular that I'm talking about the OnlyFans pimp guy. Like, yep, that's what we wonder. How many others? And so, anyways, a lot of people are coming forward, and that's why we encourage you, if you are someone who has a story to share, freaking share it. Use the platform and share it, because there's going to be someone else who's like, holy crap. And you never know when you're going to make someone feel less alone. So it's wild. Bite marks my thighs, so I couldn't wear shorts in the summer. Oh my God. I'm so sorry, girl. Yeah, it's awful. It's your ex hooked up with your friend. Ugh, what a jerk. It was very gut wrenching, and to be honest with you, we didn't realize like how intense the story. Like once we recorded the first episode, we kind of, after recording, with Livy, we just kind of stopped and we were like, dude, Like, me and Hannah were like, dude. And Molly was like, dude. And we're like, that's criminal. Like, that's bad. Like, this is bad. And so then as we continued to record the episode with the second part, we didn't realize like how bad it was. Like, this was really bad. And then when women started coming forward after hearing the episode, it was intense. It was crazy. We are working on setting up. His defense was that it only happened once, but it was the witness. I was the witness that testified for 25 years earlier. Wow. Good for you for being brave and doing that. I'm so sorry. We are working on collaborating with or setting up some kind of victims fund or a nonprofit, like something that'll help do something, whatever it is that these victims need. Sometimes it's just a matter of getting out of the relationship, and that takes money. Like, you can't exist without money. So sometimes it means like helping them find, housing, or helping them find a shelter, or helping them do something, helping them get a car that might help them get away, or helping them with childcare so that they can, get a job and not rely on their abuser or whatever. Like, whatever way it is, we don't know what that looks like yet, but we're working on it. So if you guys have any suggestions on that, please let us know, because we would love to hear them. Yep. The feminine energy is needed. It really is. And I told Hannah and Molly, I said, I don't want the podcast to turn into like a Lifetime channel, like man hater, like a woman's like man hater club. Like, absolutely not. Like, this is somewhere where like we've had men on the show too telling their stories. They're victims too of Dogfish, but it's mostly women that come forward, and so that's why like we need to advocate for these women, but there are men also. Oh, a miscarriage, and then he abused you. Oh, so sorry. Oh my God, it's so heartbreaking. If any of you guys want to share your story with the podcast, if you need a platform to stand on, like, we got you. Is the law getting involved for OnlyFans pimps? Legally, I'm unable to say. We're bound by, we can't legally say much on that, but there's going to be some updates. Could you partner with a domestic abuse charity? Yeah, that's what I'm actually working on here in Tampa. And then Molly and Hannah are working in LA, and we're working basically, obviously nationwide, to see what we can find. So we're just reaching out and seeing how we can help. Like, we didn't realize that we were going to offer such a platform. And so now that we know that we have, and you guys, like, we have back in August, we had over 1 million downloads. So now there's got to be way more than that. And so now that we have this platform, like, we want to make it useful. We want to support women and really just show as much support as possible. So yeah, that's what we're looking into. Oh my God. Your dad used to make comments about your body, and then he kissed you. Oh, I'm so sorry. Like, and as a kid, like, you don't see that, right? The podcast is called The Dating Detectives. As a kid, you don't see it. You're just like, that was freaking weird and uncomfortable. But like, it in your gut. But then when you get older, you're like, hell to the no, right? Like, my dad was he was a drill instructor at a boot camp. He was in law enforcement. He was military. He was a drill instructor in the military. Like, that's who he was. And so when he came home, like, my brother and I got it. Like, we were abused, but I can't, there's no, like, I could never admit that until I was in my 30s. It was just, my dad was very strict. We were in a very Christian home. We were Christians. So that he didn't do anything wrong. He was just, being a good dad. And I didn't call it abuse until I was in my 30s. And I was like, till I had my son, as a matter of fact. And I was like, yeah, that was definitely fucking abuse. Like, that's not okay. Yes, we verify the stories. We vet them to the depths that we can. So that's a good point. So to this day, I wonder if I was abused enough because he didn't rape me. It's a whole thing. And yeah, so that's the thing, is that the trauma is there. And so when something creates trauma, like something was abused on your body, right? Like in your head or in your mind or whatever. So that trauma is that there was abuse there. But a lot of times it's like, well, he didn't hit me, so it's not really abuse, but it is. And but then there's comments that people make where they're like, they kind of validate that. Like, they kind of validate that it wasn't abuse, right? Like, they're like, but did that really happen? Like, I mean, are you being a little dramatic? And so that's what I've got, because I have a very dramatic, personality, a very big, strong, dramatic personality. Like, oh my goodness, it's so hot outside. I'm dying. And so because I have that dramatic personality, if something happens, everybody's like, did it though? And so that's why I think I struggle also, is because there was a lot of, great book, is The Body Keep a Score. Ooh. Verbal and emotional abuse is a similar situation. Yeah. But that's why, I think that's why people kind of are afraid to come forward. And that's why victims of actual rape and actual sexual assault have a hard time talking about it, because it's like, there's no, it's like, there's no, you can't prove it. Like, there's no proof, and there isn't. You're just like, all I know is what happened, and they can't, like, all they have to do is say, nuh-uh, and like, that's it. Like, you know what I mean? Like, what do you do? It's awful. And that's, I think, that's a lot of the problem. That's a lot of why a lot of these crimes are unable to be prosecuted, are because there's just no way to prove it, and there's just so much silence surrounding them. So we just need to talk. We need to talk more about it. I want to read that. Thank you for the book recommendation. I'm in Australia and our laws are very different. Are there laws against coercive control in the U.S.? So many women don't even know what coercive control is. Yes, there are. Obviously in different, like, depending on where you live, there are different laws, but coercive control. So like, okay, so let's talk about coercive control for a minute, right? So if you talk about, or if you think about, if you call the cops, right? And you say, my boyfriend is forcing me to do OnlyFans and he's going to take half of it, right? The cop's going to be like, well, did you tell him you're going to, like, they're going to be like, I don't know what to tell you. And so it's like local law enforcement officers, like deputies, officers, patrolmen, whoever, right? They don't, it's almost like, there's a whole different unit for stuff like that they're not well trained on. So a lot of times when a victim will call the cops and say, this is happening to me, they're like, nothing, there's no laws broken here, which there are, but at the capacity of local law enforcement, there's nothing they can do, right? Like they're just like, did he hit you? No? Okay, then like, I'm not taking him to jail. Like, what do you do? Like, you guys are basically just like disagreeing. But that's not, with coercive control, you can't, like, that's manipulative and you can't do that, right? Hi, baby. Are you all donesies? Are you all done with your shower and stuff? Huh? Oh, okay. So anyways, I'm going to go spend time with my kid. We are going to watch, what are we watching? Oh, Police Academy. From 1984, the year I was born. It's a very funny movie. If you haven't seen it, you have to go watch it. So I'm going to go spend some time with him. And, but anyways, if you guys have any feedback for us, or, for us as a whole, as a podcast, the Dating Detectives, or if you have a story you want to share, please share it with us, because this has become such a big thing. Like, this is such a huge deal, and we want to, I mean, the stories before this one also, but this one especially was kind of an eye-opener for us. Like, we were like, holy shit, like, this is a huge deal, especially more than as more people have been coming forward. So anyways, thank you guys so much for your support and your love. Go listen to the Dating Detectives. The latest episode is called The OnlyFans Pimp. There's 2 parts. You'll hear the first part, which is Libby's story, and then you hear the second part, so you can listen. Now you can binge them because they're both out. Oh, Sonia, I'm so sorry that happened to you. If you guys ever need somewhere to share this, please feel free to reach out to me or Hannah or Molly, the producer, and you will have an ear and a friend here. So I love you guys so much. I hope you have a good night. Talk to you later. Bye.